Is he really kissing the sand? Very well, Halston. We've established this is Iceland, but where to now? Where to now? To the house of my father, if it's still there, that is. Looks like it, Icelander. I hope you'll find what you seek, my friend. Today on the Comic Book Report, The Exile by Erik Kriek from Living the Line. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm back in the world of Living the Line for another fascinating comics release. That's right, we're taking a look at Erik Kriek's The Exile today. And after recently reading his work called The Pit, I've been really curious to see what else this creator has to offer, and I was definitely not disappointed. Before we jump into my thoughts though, I would just like to say a huge thank you to those at Living the Line for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review. And as always, I would like to shout out our channel's sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for them in the video's description, and if you see anything on that website you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. This graphic novel was written and illustrated by Erik Kriek. The graphic novel itself was published by Living the Line in 2023. The volume itself collects the Exile graphic novel. And finally, this oversized hardcover edition has matte paper stock, what appears to be a glued binding, and a total of 192 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. I'd also like to issue a mature content warning. This series has graphic depictions of violence, sexual content, nudity, and a scene of rape. I have done my best to avoid the scenes of sexuality and assault, but thought the note was still warranted. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's graphic novel. Again, this is Erik Kriek's The Exile, and I love this cover image. We have a picture of our titular character here at the top, and below I think we have the shores of his native Iceland. You also get a feeling for the color palette used throughout this book. It's a lot of muted blacks, whites, kind of blues, and then shocks of red for certain scenes of violence. Transitioning to the spine, we have a field of kind of brown here. We have the title, The Exile, and the creator, Erik Kriek, followed by the Living the Line logo at the bottom. All that font for the lettering is all bright red. Pretty striking spine font. I think the juxtaposition of colors here is quite interesting, but overall I think it is really well designed. I'll show it in a moment next to my copy of Erik Kriek's The Pit, just so you can see what these would look like next to each other on a bookcase. Before we get to that, of course, we're looking at the back cover. We have a little bit about the book here and the creators, the little barcode at the bottom. All pretty standard fare. We have some shores beneath it as well. Pretty good stuff here. A pretty standard back cover. I don't think it is the most ornate, but I think it really does still help sell it. And overall, no complaints. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a quick look at this book's binding. I mentioned it earlier, but we have matte paper stock here, and what I thought was glued binding, but now looking at it, I can't tell if it's also sewn in here. Maybe you can correct me in the comments, it's a little hard to tell, but we do have a bit of an eye, which is nice. The collection lays down quite flat. No gutter loss, thanks to some nice margins as well. Overall, really happy with this binding. Okay, and as discussed earlier, here's a copy of The Exile next to the aforementioned Erik Kriek's The Pit. I also read this and probably reviewed it already on the channel. I'm not sure exactly what order I'm going to release all this in, but definitely stay tuned for that if it hasn't come out already, and if it has, I'll try to link the video in the description. Kriek has a very wonderful style that's hard for me to articulate, but it has a kind of cartoonist, animator-like quality to it that I find absolutely fascinating. The spine designs for these as well, even though they don't perfectly match, there is a kind of symmetry to a lot of this that I enjoy. I think that this would look sharp together on a bookcase. Okay, and now as we jump into the book proper, we have some really just absolutely jaw-dropping end pages, followed by a title page. We do have a very exciting two-page character page that shows the characters followed by their names, which is a great just kind of indexing of who you can expect in the book. We're given a foreword and a couple other small pieces of front matter before jumping right into our primary text. Now, I mentioned it at the top, but this is a graphic novel, which means we didn't have individual issues that comprised this collected edition. It was meant to be released as one singular product like you have before you, and in part because of that, we also don't have any prerequisite reading we need to do before enjoying the collection. It is very standalone, so it has a really definitive beginning, middle, and end, which I quite enjoyed. As far as setting the stage for this collection, I want to say as well, it is set in a specific place and time. It feels almost like historical fiction to me. It has such a level of detail and what feels like fidelity to this kind of region and general subject matter that I was really just kind of breathtaken away by it. It was breathtaking. I don't know, I said that awkwardly, but you know what I mean. So what the story is for The Exile is it follows the primary character of Halston Thorsden, who is the titular exile that the, of course, title mentions. He basically was exiled from his homeland of Iceland for about 7 years for committing a crime. As far as what the crime was, we actually have that revealed throughout the course of this graphic novel, but basically the story revolves around his return journey home with some of his colleagues he's made while exiled. He returns to a small town coastal community that has since passed him by, and he sees things, well, they are decidedly different from when he had left. The politics of this local town, as well as the mistakes of his past, are really just waiting right there upon his return, and he finds struggle trying to reincorporate back into the life he was exiled from. As far as the plot goes, that's the overall synopsis or shape of it, or maybe not synopsis, but the overall setup and kind of shape for it early on. What we have as it kind of goes forward, we find that his father has passed away during his time of exile, and he has sort of his stepmom who's extremely wary of him, especially trying to claim his birthright because I think he was an illegitimate son, and with his past criminal history, it's really kind of a touch and go, uneasy atmosphere. He seems to have, I believe, a younger stepbrother, if I'm not mistaken. His colleagues who join him as he returns home to Iceland kind of make their way about the village, kind of meet some of the local women and people. And again, everyone in this community is kind of rubbed the wrong way upon Halston's return. And you find out as we go through exactly what happened 7 years ago. Essentially, there was an incident where he got drunk and came upon a woman who was bathing, and he liked her and decided to force himself upon her, and he rapes her, and then her brother catches wind of it and tries to fight him, and Halston murders the brother. So of course he is exiled from that, so upon his return home he does find the woman he victimized who is still ready for her revenge. As the plot continues to go on, we have some of his colleagues kind of finding friendships or enemies on this little coastal town. We see some of those kind of family dynamics or what's left of his family as we go, and we have a confrontation between him and this main woman who again was tragically victimized, and we have her kind of turning the tables and seeking out whatever means she can to get her revenge. Everything comes to a head when this exile is challenged essentially to a duel, and after a kind of interesting twist of fate, possibly at the hands of his once victim, he is stabbed and killed, and his colleagues who went with him ultimately leave Iceland. This is a quick flyby synopsis of what happened in The Exile. I'm of course leaving out some subtler plot points. We have depictions of war and flashbacks and violence and things throughout as well, more than just the sexual violence I outlined here. But it's a really, really impressive graphic novel. It's evocative, it's interesting, it's shocking to say the least. The characters are all really rich, and you get the feeling that there's so much more beneath the surface. I feel like Kriek does such a great job of filling out these characters characters through dialogue and their actions rather than just telling us who they are. The use of flashbacks as well absolutely helps. I think his actual artwork, though, is also really fascinating. I mentioned this when I reviewed The Pit, I believe, but he has kind of an animated cartoonist kind of style to him, I believe. There is something simple about his art and yet at the same time richly hyper detailed and fascinating, and I find it to be even more detailed here in the Exile. I love this kind of muted color palette we get throughout it as well. It's mostly black and white and shades of kind of muted blue, and again after that we have juxtapositions of these shocking just scenes of red, and these are all scenes that depict violence or things of horror, and I thought that was utilized extremely well and effectively throughout. I think thematically this work was really rich as well, just going into that kind of what do you do with your past, and can you ever find your way home again, and all of those things. Is redemption possible? There's just really a lot of interesting undertones here. It's a heavy story, it's a pretty bleak story. There are moments of levity, but overall it is a moody, broody, just heavier kind of tale. Again, it has a feeling of historical fiction as well. I just feel like the culture it depicts here, the location, the times, the way that people kind of spoke, it all has this feeling of truth, whether or not it is or not, but I really like that. I think that is an absolute commendation for this creator and the richness of immersion he's able to do with the setting and these characters, and I really did find that absolutely fascinating. This truly was a page-turning kind of work from the beginning all the way through the end. And as I continue my flip through, again, largely going over things I've spoken to, I did want to mention a couple other things about this collection. You probably noticed it is a hardcover edition. It's oversized compared to a single issue comic book or standard trade paperback collection. It also doesn't have any kind of dust jacket or slipcase. It is just the hardcover itself. But I did find this to be, like I mentioned, really well bound and overall really sturdy construction. It is also really uniform with that Pit collection, so if you are a fan of his work from Living the Line, it is nice to see some uniformity as far as the presentation and formatting, which I always appreciate. I mentioned too, the paper stock is this kind of matte paper, but it has a thickness to it. It almost feels kind of like an archival paper. It is really well done. And overall, yeah, it's just a striking work. I wonder if this is one of those stories that will stay with me a while after I read it, just because I was so struck by what happened here, the characters, and again, just that kind of heaviness. I really do think there's something rich in how Kriek has presented this story, and it's just interesting. It's absolutely fascinating. At the back of the collection, as you just saw, we do have a glossary of terms. We have a bibliography of, I believe, where he researched certain things about the work. We have something about the author, and that really brought us to the end of this collection. Once again, this is Erik Kriek's The Exile from Living the Line. And I think all that's left to do now is to give this hardcover comic collection graphic novel a grade. For this thematically rich and heavy story with absolutely jaw-dropping art, the Comic Book Report is happy to give The Exile by Erik Kriek from Living the Line a B. This was an above-average read for me and one that I was truly fascinated by. It was extremely well-paced and well-written. The art was really just jump off the page incredible, especially with this style. I particularly, again, like that muted color scheme and everything that the author tried to convey here, or at least what I was able to pick up on. I do think that this is a very layered narrative that a lot of people will take different things from. I have a feeling it'll stay with me for a little while in my memory. And I can honestly say I have never read another comic or graphic novel quite like this. After reading The Pit and now here The Exile, I'm also really impressed by the range of Erik Kriek, and I would be interested in more recommendations from him. If you followed this writer, illustrator, and you have other recommendations beyond this and The Pit, I'd love to hear it in the comments section. But again, these are all just my thoughts on The Exile. I'd love to hear yours. Have you read this collection? Do you plan on picking it up? Let me hear all about that in the comments, and a huge thank you again to Living the Line for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review, and for all of you for sticking with me. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe check out another one of my videos on your way out. Thanks, have a good one.